Hey folks, Cryo here. We're back with our 6th Mythic Plus dungeon pull-by-pull guide, and today we're taking a look at the MOTHERLOAD. Another dungeon that gets a bad rap, but in reality is a fairly easy key. Of course, certain affixes can make it more challenging, as I'm sure nobody wants to deal with a bolstered or enraged peacekeeper that could one-shot you. But this dungeon is very forgiving, by which I mean at the 15 level keystone you have a lot of time to time this key. With that said, we're going to be doing things a bit different with this video, as this dungeon primarily has 3 parts: a very large beginning, a kind of medium middle, and a very small end. So instead of going pull by pull, I'm going to be primarily focusing on the watch out moments while giving tips and tricks as the gameplay plays behind. The reason I want to do this video this way is because this dungeon has a million different pulls that you can do, all of which vary in size depending on your competence and confidence level of the group you're running with. However, if you would like a more cookie cutter style build that I have been doing, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I would be more than happy to provide that. Friendly reminder to catch me live on Twitch. I stream Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays starting at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also check out my Discord, where you can find links to my UI and my week aura strings and play with like-minded players. Now enough of that, let's get into this MOTHERLOAD dungeon guide. Alright, full disclosure, this was a plus 19 run that we were aiming to 2 chests, so some of these pulls are very large, but even when I pug keys, the route typically does not change up too much. This first pull, you can see I mass script a bit too early and prevented the mech jockey from activating the peacekeeper. Now typically you want these just for a larger percent count. This pull is not too dangerous for your group, but your tank will be taking massive damage. The most important aspect for the group to focus on is interrupting the refreshment vendor's ice spritzer. If this channel completes, it will stun its target, which can get out of hand very quickly, especially if it's your healer that is stunned. You can interrupt concussion charges to lessen the amount of damage going out, but not if it means allowing ice spritzer to go off. The strategy that I fully recommend is taking this first obelisk straight to the boss. This allows your group to get hero or bloodlust on cooldown much faster, allowing you to use it again on a large trash pack and still have it available for the 3rd boss. Now while we're cutting this, I'd like to bring up the route. As you can see, we get the majority of our percentage early on, allowing us to skip a handful of tough foes later in the dungeon. You can also see that we are over percentage, and the reason I do not mind this is because sometimes you may accidentally grip or interrupt a mech jockey from activating a peacekeeper, and this hinders your percent count quite a bit. Also, the crawler mines at the end do not give percent if you do not kill them, but rather let them explode. Better safe than sorry, and have a bit extra instead of backtracking later. The trash pack just outside the boss's room must be pulled beforehand, and there are a few things to note. With the hired assassins, it's crucial that you interrupt Toxic Blades, as it empowers his next ability, Hail of Fan of Knives. This needs to be stopped with a stun, incap, or disorient of some sort. We have another refreshment vendor, interrupt Ice Spritzer, and as for the Peacekeeper, do not stand in the orange cloud, and if you are the tank, try to face it away from the ranged so that they do not have to move when it activates its shield. This first boss is not very complicated, but it has a few moving parts that need to be watched. Static pulse cannot be avoided, so healers just be ready and pre-hot or pre-shield if you can. The most important mechanic to watch out for is Shocking Claw. The boss will turn and cast a deadly frontal cone that gets very wide the further away you are. Be sure to dodge this. Now these soccer ball bombs you see make the boss take extra damage and should be kicked ASAP. You can wait on the 3rd kick to prolong the debuff and increase the damage the boss takes longer, but you run the risk of getting knocked away by static pulse or getting squashed by the Shocking Claw. Now if you're tanking, be sure to kite away from any gold coin piles. If the boss sucks these up, it will increase the amount of damage he does. Now this boss is a pain to kite. He casts a lot of abilities back to back, so just be proactive and pre-kite when you can. Once the first boss is dead, head out of the room and backtrack to gather up some easy percentage. I do not recommend these large pulls if you are not in a coordinated group, but you will be pulling the same mobs eventually, so take it slow, you have plenty of time to get through this dungeon. As you can see here, we're getting into our repeat trash, so as long as the group focuses on interrupting Ice Spritzer and stunning the hired assassin, and the tank keeps the Peacekeeper faced away, it should be no problem. Let as many mech jockeys as you can activate their Peacekeepers, and keep an eye on your healer's mana. As long as it's not a bolstering week, chain pull what your group can handle. Once we are finished with the circle, it's time to head up on to the rest of the dungeon. Now these goblins can be very dangerous, so I recommend pulling 1 or 2 packs at a time. The most important ability to be on the lookout for is Rock Lance. Interrupt it at all costs, especially on a raging or bolstering week. These lances will one-shot you. The Earthshapers do cast a shield, but it can be purged or ignored, so save those interrupts and stuns for Rock Lances. I think it goes without saying, do not stand in the giant orange grenades on the ground as they explode. these Azerite extractors should be tanked faced away from the group. Their power through ability does physical damage to everyone in front of it. As soon as the Azerite extractor dies, a driller will also spawn out of it, so be sure to snag aggro on it. Our second obelisk allows us to skip a massive amount of terrible mobs, and for that we are thankful. Drag this lieutenant to the back of the second boss's room to be able to get out without an accidental face pull. This boss is very easy, but can go terribly wrong quickly. As the tank, be sure to face him away from the group as he does a frontal tectonic smash. You can and should also move out of it yourself. Now as a blood decay, save your mass grip for when the Earth Ragers start to channel the resonant quake. This will interrupt them and prevent them from casting it again immediately after. If you grip or stun them too early, they will just start casting again. As for the Earth Ragers, members fixated should kite them. As you see here, if you are hit by one, they leave a bleed on you that stacks and refreshes its duration. Help your healers out and kite them. Do not face tank them. It is also good practice to kite around the boss, allowing the DPS to continuously cleave off the boss to get him down much sooner. But play smart and play safe. Once the boss is dead, hop in the minecart and move on. This is the only pull you need to make that involves alchemists and assistants. Both have abilities that should be interrupted. Caustic Compound leaves a 6-second magic dot on its target. While Blowtorch will leave a fire dot on anyone in front of it, so tanks face them away and interrupt it. Transfiguration Serum is by far the most deadly ability that should be interrupted, as it will transform the assistants, grant them full health, and allow them access to a new ability that leaves a 10-second disease on its target. Once they're dead, activate the third obelisk. Now this third obelisk is our savior, as it allows us to skip the rest of the alchemist assistants and the masterminds. So just deal with whichever lieutenant it is, drag it to Rix's room, and prepare yourself for the most difficult boss in this dungeon. As you see here, Rixa will periodically place Azerite catalysts on the ground, but we'll get back to that later. Be wary of the chemical burn dot. She will cast it twice on 2 nearest players to her. Typically this is a tank and a melee DPS. The healer must dispel one and heal the other, unless you have a priest that can mass dispel one set. Tanks, you should try to have some CD ready for it, as you will be taking massive magic damage already. Now the Azerite lines you see have an RNG aspect to them, but again, some heads up tanking can make this a trivial mechanic. When Rixa casts Propellant Blast, she will push back anyone in the way while dealing massive fire damage, but she will also push away any Azerite catalyst on the ground. Now you can bait this ability, as she will pick a random player before casting it, and then fire in that direction. As the tank, position yourself so that the DPS is behind her, and without even knowing it, they are baiting the propellant blast in a good direction. You can type in chat beforehand to try to tell the DPS to be wary of this, or you can wing it and hope they follow basic DPS tactics. However, some range players and healers can cause a skewed propellant blast, so be sure to include them in your plans. Rinse and repeat this until you have a clear platform, and you'll have the boss down in no time. Once the boss is dead, you have a last bit of inevitable trash to deal with before your last obelisk. This pack is not too dangerous as long as you focus down the technician, who will cast Repair and heal the war machine. Interrupt it and GG. This is where your group will see those crawler mines we mentioned, and they must be destroyed by the players before they explode, or you will not receive percent credit. Once everything is dead, activate your last obelisk and drag it to the final boss. Now, I had an idea of how I wanted to show this fight, but it's difficult to get accurate camera angles, so instead I'll just be showing you the safe spot strategy. As you can see here, this section of the grate will never be hit by the Boomba's micro missiles, no matter which direction or pattern they're aiming. However, this does leave your group vulnerable to homing missile damage and Gatling gun damage. Sometimes the micro missiles and the Gatling gun overlap, but it's much safer to take a hit from Gatling gun rather than die instantly to the missiles. Now, during the second phase, be sure to focus down the adds as quickly as you can because they can pump out some decent damage. But maintain focus on Mogul as he will be casting Drill Smash, and you do not want to miss dropping a Drill Smash on a big red rocket. Smash 3 and move on to the final phase, which is just phase 1 all over again. That's it for the Motherload, folks. I know these videos are getting a little bit longer as these dungeons are getting a little bit longer. I try not to cut out too much of the route or important information or information that I feel is important to help you guys time your 15 keys. Again, if you want a more cookie cutter style, foolproof route for this dungeon, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for sticking with me, and as always, stay frosty.